Hello, everyone, and welcome to Designer by Designer, IALD's new series of one-on-one interviews with and by lighting designers around the world. My name is David Suck. I'm one of the board members for the IALD New York City chapter. I'm joined by Melanie Coulot, one of the IALD staff members from IALD Europe. We are excited to welcome you to the third interview in this series with another one of my fellow IALD New York board members, Selin Ergeneli and Gerd Pfarré, a fellow IALD from IALD Germany. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsors. The Designer by Designer series is made possible through the generous support of our platinum level sponsors, Axis Lighting, Cooper Lighting, Lutron Electronics, Lumenpulse. Our gold level sponsors, including Lambent Lighting Group, and our silver level sponsors. Today's interview is being broadcast on Zoom and Facebook Live and is being recorded and will be available later to view on YouTube. Selin will be answering questions at the end of the interview, so if you're watching with us on Zoom, please use the Q&A option throughout the interview. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Selin Ergeneli and Gerd Pfarré for the third interview of IALD's Designer by Designer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the third event of Designer and Designer Lighting Forum. And thank you, Gerd, for joining us as well. It's very exciting to get to know you through this forum. So we have a couple of questions, just quick icebreaker questions. So I'm going to start with those. Teamwork or solo?
Oh, teamwork, definitely.
Cold or warm?
Warm.
Wine or beer?
Wine, absolutely.
Okay. City or country?
City and country.
Both? Okay. Okay. Well, everybody needs some like balance. White color or white light or colored light?
White light.
Okay. Honestly, no one has said colored light until now, so that's something to be, that's a thought. Light or shade?
Light.
Day or night?
Night.
Okay. So now with some more serious questions, could you tell us a little bit about you, like where you are from?
That comes back to the question, city or country. I grew up in the country in a small village. Well, not a village, but a village with 12,000 people and one junction with one traffic light. And it's located between Hanover and Frankfurt, more or less in the middle of Germany, but I'm living in Munich since 40 years now, with some time abroad, some years abroad in between.
Where in abroad?
I was in Milan, I was in South America, I lived in Berlin, so different places, but I came back to Munich and I'm still here now.
Nice.
I opened my practice in Munich.
Okay, that sounds like a fun life. What did you want to be growing up?
In Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, cool. Nice. So what did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you always want to become a lighting designer?
No, actually, I was pretty early. I was bad at school. I was thinking I had a definitely a good idea of what I didn't want to do. But I took some time to find out what I want to do on a self-instructed basis, on a self-taught basis. So I didn't study. There was no lighting design study or university available anyway at the time when I started. So I came over different stations, over different steps into the lighting.
So what was your background previous to becoming a lighting designer?
The first experience I had with light was a very interesting moment when I used to play drums in a school band when I was a teenager, and we had those, small gigs here and there. And I took care about the lighting. And I had this sparkling silver drum kit that was very good in reflecting the light, whatever I had at hand, you know, like simple fixtures. And I liked it when I lit it up from below. And so that was the first, actually it was the first moment when I figured out that that was like 76 or so, when I found out that light is a fascinating thing to play with. But I grew up on construction sites anyway. My father was in construction business. So I was crawling around already with 6 or so and smelling the smell of construction sites and buildings under construction. So I think this was pretty, and I always loved that. Mostly weekends. My dad took me then to construction sites, which were, of course, forbidden to enter. But we entered and looked around, you know, what other people are going to build there.
That's cool. So how did that lead you to lighting design?
I gave up school and I started in a carpentry and cabinet making practice. An education I finished with a diploma in cabinet making. And from there, I came into interior design. And it was already in early 80s, 82 or so, when I designed the first fixture that was built, a custom-made luminaire that was built for a bathroom, because I couldn't find the appropriate fixture for the bathroom. And so this and that, and then I of course, that an important moment was then when I started with Ingo Maurer, and I worked pretty long in his studio, first in the design of the products department and afterwards in the projects. So that was then the moment when I switched to projects and lighting design for projects.
That is really cool.
Mid 80s.
That is so cool. I actually had read this about you. I Googled you a little bit before this, and I read that you worked with him, and I was fangirling a little bit over that. There are some installation looking fixtures that he made that it's been an inspiration on my computer since college. I think it's the one called Lacrime del Pescatore. It's this like sparkly one. Yeah, the net. It's really cool. Yeah.
You know what it means? The word?
The tears of the fisherman.
Right.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, those were inspiring years. You know, he was a great mentor, but he was crazy as well. It was, but we did really crazy things during that time. Yeah.
That sounds fun. So then what or who inspires you in your design journey, or has been inspiring you?
This is one of those questions where you usually tell wonderful stories about, you know, walks in the forest or diving in the sea. And that's all true. That's all inspiring. But what inspires me most is the project. Is actually the project I'm working on, because there is always this approach. What's the best you can do with it? You know, what is the idea? Where's the idea? How do you develop a concept? How do you get most out of it from a creative point of view, from an aesthetical point of view, from the technical side, and in budget? So I think this is all, for me, is pretty inspiring. To go on with this and to observe myself also in my personal development. how I handled this over the years, and how I grew up with, and how I'm able to still have a lot of fun with it after all these years doing it. I find this inspiring.
Yeah, it's really cool. So what gets you most excited about using lighting as a medium?
Well, the most exciting about lighting to me is always the reflection. We are used to, when we start to work on a project, we are used to check all reflective surfaces and what does the light do with the surface, and what's the reflection for the space, how you can manage the reflection in order to create an illuminated space. That's to me always the most fascinating. The technique, the fixtures, the angles and everything, this is all fine. And it's all important. And all the manufacturers we have introducing their new products all the time is all wonderful. But basically from a conceptual point of view, the reflection, the light hits the surface, and the reflection is actually that what you experience as a quality. That's the most, for me, still the most interesting moment.
Yeah. So how does the country you live in impact your projects?
Germany is sometimes a bit too serious for me. You know, people are known for that, you know, for that kind of, but what I like is this sense of quality that was developed in Germany, and this high standard or this high level of craftsmanship. That's what I really like. When you want to do something, when you want to design something extraordinary, when you are in front of a very complicated construction detail or whatever, you will find people that say, okay, this is a challenge and it's not a problem. But you have to be careful to select the right people, because Germans like to and tend to think in problems too, and not in solutions.
Okay.
But they are able once you get them on the hook, and that's what I like in this country.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. What would be your dream project to work on?
Oh, there are many I still like to do, or that which did not show up in our practice. A library. I would really like to make a nice bookshop or a library. I would love to design a public pool, indoor and outdoor, with a spa and everything. A nice project like this would that would be nice. We didn't do this until now. If you know somebody with a pool, just ring.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send them your way. Okay. So has becoming a lighting designer impacted your life in a more meaningful way? Has it changed your life?
Well, I don't know how it would be without being a lighting designer. But it's, I think I made definitely the right decision. I would not like to change. No, I would not. I would also not change with architects, because you have nowadays so many things you have to consider, and it's so hard to be focused or concentrated on one quality of a building. With the lighting, we are in a pretty comfortable situation. Once you understand what you're doing, once you are respected and you are hired, of course, you can do lots of wonderful things. And so I wouldn't change that. If I would start again, I would do it the same way. Maybe I would change some things that are more on the organization of your practice and stuff like that. But the occupation or the profession itself, I would not change. No. I experienced this time with Ingo involved in product design. That was also very interesting, of course, and very useful for what I'm doing now. But the scale 5:1, or like tiny little details you're working on, and then this long process until you get a product on the market, was not my my taste. I prefer more to be involved in the project, see the site, talk to the people, work with the people, create a good team to work with or be part of the team. And then you have a defined beginning and a defined end where you can take the photographs. No? And that's it. And a product development is a completely different story. And it was nice to do it, to experience it, but I would not like to follow that anymore.
Did you, in your product design journey, did you build things yourself during the development process, or would you like draw them and like send them out to someone else, and would you get prototypes? How did that work?
Both. We built a lot of models also with paper, and well, at that time with another technology, as you know. I mean, we had the light bulb in not so many different types. We had fluorescent. We had metal halide, those kind of stuff. And so we of course we drew and we built models. We built architectural models actually for the projects, where we used to take photographs, in the model to show from the eye level how it would look afterwards. Nobody is thinking about those things anymore, because you can just render it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, model making is definitely an art that's been, I feel like, disappearing after school.
It's a pity.
At least for me. Yeah,
it's
definitely.
a pity.
So how was like with Ingo, how did the project start? Like, what would be inspiration points, or did you have to create certain things for like collaborations? Like, how did that process go?
Oh, this is hard to tell, because it was really, every project was completely different, from the approach, from the chaos also. And so, trying to put the pieces together sometimes, it was more, let's call it an artistic adventure. But at the end, we delivered a good quality. That was always the focus of the master. The master had on his work, and that was a good way to do it. Apart from all the chaos during the planning, and we have been working sometimes like weeks, months on a thing, and then he decided, no, we are not going to use that. No, so it was all for the bin, and we started a completely new concept. No, and so this explains a little that there was no way I could repeat now how this approach would or this process would have been followed. There was no process in a typical sense. It was completely different from how I work now in my practice, which is completely different structure.
Okay, what inspired you to quit product design and open your own studio and do a little bit more architectural lighting instead of product lighting, product design?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was fascinated already when well, we had some very nice, crazy projects all over the place, all over the world actually, where we have been working on, but mostly then focused on Ingo's ideas and products and custom-made luminaires, and I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be independent and use everything I could find or I could think or imagine of. And it was also then, it was okay to leave, you know, you should not stick too long, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
You should not stay if you have the feeling that you wanna run your own practice and not waiting for the okay of somebody who feels more responsible than you are, then you are ready for your own responsibility. And then that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a good advice for young designers. Like
makes that sense for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So when you are designing in Germany, do you have to abide by codes? Do you have like codes and regulations that you need to stick to, or is it just a free world?
Would be nice. No, Germany is not like that. No,
Yeah,
of course we have that. We have all these regulations like all over, and we are well, they follow us. They are like I wouldn't say it's like dog shit on your shoe, but you know, it's like it's like something that sticks on you. So while you are going on, and we are not fascinated by that, and we are not we do not love it, but we have to live with it. And so, but it's not dominating our creative process. And I am doing sometimes, especially when we speak about dark, light, dark contrast, I'm leaning sometimes myself out of the window and saying, no, this is okay. And if there is any problem with a regulation that might pop up, I will be the responsible person to talk to. And I got never, ever, until now, hopefully, knocking on wood, I never got in trouble. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your design process like when you first get a project, like a brand new project that you're starting to work on?
I think first, I think how the people would like to have it, how the people move in the space. It doesn't matter if it's inside or outside, because the people are the most important feature in the project. The people using the project or visiting or working in or having dinner or going to shop or whatever. So I'm trying to see or to put myself in the perspective or in the situation of the user. And then I'm starting to think about the light, the shadow, the reflection, the color, the surface. And later on, I'm also thinking about the products you could use. But the products are not in the foreground. The luminaires are not in the foreground. I'm thinking in like more abstract ways of this wall could be like this, and this surface like this and this. And what's important also is the balance. Also already in the imagination of the space, that you balance somehow, like in the painting maybe, what you want to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So is there lighting design education in Germany, and what are some of the important factors when you are hiring a younger lighting designer? Like, is it okay for someone, now that you have your own practice, to come from a non-educational background, or is it important that someone has a more like institutional background?
Well, we have, in the meantime, we have very good schools, high university. We have Wismar, you probably know. We have Hildesheim, and we have on several other schools or universities, we have small departments that incorporated the lighting design. It depends on hiring a young person. It can be somebody that is really just standing here in the office. Like sometimes there's nobody. There's not the typical process of you receive a CV from somebody, and so I like when people just standing in the door and telling me I would like to work with you. But there are, of course, in the meantime, there are skills you really have to have apart from the software skills. The language is very important. As a small practice, I found out that it's hard to hire somebody who is not able to speak German, because I cannot guarantee all the time that we have projects abroad where you can, have somebody just working in English. In the office, it's no problem in working in English, but with a client, you always need to have a project abroad, and so this is a bit difficult. And in the meantime, I'm focused on people. They do not have to have necessarily an educational background in lighting design or a grade in lighting design, but they should have definitely a grade in architecture or interior design. Knowing the basics of building spaces,
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really it's getting hard in a small practice. We are between 5 and 7 or so. If you are a larger practice, you can have different, I would not say, call it departments or whatever, where you could, of course, have different people with different approach and different abilities and skills, and that makes absolute sense. Also product-wise, product design or theater, But from my experience, architecture and interior design is a must.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So an unrelated question. I had heard that the business language in Germany is English. Is that not the case, or?
It's the case. Yeah, but if you have a project like let's say you have a residential project here somewhere around Munich, you cannot work with a client in English. They expect you. They expect you to speak and to the entire communication has to be in German then.
Okay, yeah.
But Germans usually speak English, lots of them. That's true.
Yeah, Germans. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's true.
So do you still design like custom products for your projects and like go into like workshops and make them yourself, or do you usually just send out like how the fixture is going to look like, drawings, and get prototypes? Like, are you still involved with your past career, or is it simply just built environment lighting?
Oh no, we do quite a lot. We design quite a lot custom made luminaires and objects in a low in a low number, like 20 pieces or something, or maybe just one piece. And it's fun doing it, but it has, of course, a high price. And so you need the client that is willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
And from the making, we have lots of people around our office or around our studio, like we call them satellites, that we have a long relation in building and constructing and manufacturing whatever we have in mind. So in any material, with any kind of surface, with all what you can just dream about. But it's of course a matter of price, because custom designed light objects are expensive and have to last as long as a serial product, as a normal manufacturer product. So there is a lot of work behind, and yeah, and you have to know how to do it. No, we like that. We like to do it also because it's a special feature in some projects where you can look at and say, well, this is made for the project. This is always a very nice, and if it fits, if it's not exaggerating, or if it's not well, sometimes it can be fancy, sometimes it can be minimal. It just has to fit, and then it's enriching. In the best case, it's enriching the project.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So are you guys back to the office fully, or are you still working in a hybrid way?
Kind of hybrid, yeah, and kind of still home office and office situation. But we were surprised, like many others, I think, that it's working pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. So do you think it should stay, this hybrid approach to working?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. But I won't miss face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is absolutely important, especially with a client and with other people you are working with the architects or whatever. I mean, not in this extensive way like it used to be. You know, we were flying around like crazy, and imagine the cost also, and the waste of time, and the waste of energy. You know, to have a view from a sustainable point of view. It was just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
a big impact on the world.
Yeah, so that this is now could be reduced, I really appreciate. But for some moments, important presentations, I would still prefer face-to-face meeting.
So has working remotely impacted your practice, or was it fine?
Yeah, of course, but you know, in those moments like where we had to get used to it, you know, also to and how the different like Zoom and Teams and or whatever we use, how all this kind of stuff is working. I'm lucky that I have competent people around me.
Yeah.
That can share the screen.
Yeah, definitely. So what would be some career advice that you would give to your younger self?
Good question. Communication. Never underestimate a good communication. I think this is in any profession absolutely necessary, and it's absolutely underestimated. Even if you go to a doctor, sometimes you wonder, where is he looking at? Why is he not looking to my eyes? You know, I think that communication, especially in such a delicate and miraculous field like lighting, where nobody knows what to explain, how and what to speak about, and what is this? Do we need more? Do we need less? People used to think in quantities, and you want to speak about quality. So communication is one of the greatest challenges, and is one of the most important features, apart from all the rest, which is of course important to build your own expertise of being a designer. The communication is essential. Without a good communication, your work won't be accepted. your work won't be acknowledged. It gives you a hard life because you will have a lot of questions from people who do not understand what's going on. And so from my experience, I'm focusing on is having a good communication means as less questions in my office as possible. Means when you deliver a plan, when you deliver a concept, when you deliver the lighting design, people need to understand what you want, need to understand what you are doing, need to understand what they should do with it, like electrical planning, integrated in their planning. And as less questions are coming back, as better it is.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. So this new section is our Enlightened Ask section. You can pass on only one question, but I didn't prepare any questions that would be like crazy to pass on. Okay. And if our listeners want to ask any questions, they can start putting them in the Q&A box. So here are the Enlightened Ask questions. What would you become if you hadn't become a lighting designer?
Oh, I would have loved to become a musician.
Musician?
I think being a musician is if you can make a living of it and feed a family and make music, it's the best life you can have.
That is so interesting. Do you play any instruments?
I played percussion and drums.
Oh yeah,
But this is a couple of years ago. I had no. Well, it's sad, but I had to quit because I could not follow up, especially with a drum kit. Where in a city like Munich, it's completely out of your fantasy where to play a drum kit. So maybe this will change again, but I could not play for many years now.
Okay.
But this is definitely.
What kind of music would you want to play?
I think it would be jazzy. It would be funky.
That is so cool. That's so cool. I would have never thought of that.
Oh, really?
Thought of that. Yeah.
No, as long as I cannot as I cannot go on playing, I try to make music for the eyes.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Yeah. What would be the country you would want to practice lighting design if it wasn't Germany?
Oh, this is a difficult question. I would probably like to work in a country in Africa. And I would not be focused on any particular country. I would just say on the African continent. I would like to work in Africa and as a lighting designer.
That's interesting. Okay. I like that. What's your preferred method to design with? Like, do you prefer to do hand sketching or Photoshop work or rendering or just building mock-ups?
For me, working on or the beginning with a design work for a project is always by hand. Still, I'm old school, you know. I have my markers. I have my pen, and I'm just scribbling on prints that are on the table. And of course, we work then with the renders and sometimes also with models. But the hand sketching is for me still is an essential part of my work. Also in meetings with clients, I'm lucky that I can explain sometimes, you know, we can do it like this or like that, just with a hand sketch. And I think this is while you are talking to somebody, no? Sketching while you are talking to somebody.
Yeah, thinking with your hands.
Yes, exactly. And then, you know, scribbling an idea that the other person who is not so familiar in what you are doing is able to understand immediately. I think this is that's important, and for me, it's still fun. I mean, it's like it belongs to my nature to draw and to scribble. I started with drawing all by hand, you know, all projects, everything, you know, with ink, with ink even, yeah.
Yeah, computers weren't as much of a design process material when I think it first started. Were they?
No, there was well, I'm working with Mac only all my life, and there will be nothing else in my studio than Mac. Yeah,
I love that. I love Macs. I feel like their like color renditions are so much superior. But how do you, for example, work with like AutoCAD or Revit on a Mac?
We flip. We have then.
Okay. You have the
two. Yeah, we have two with the Windows flip. There's another name for it, but I don't know.
It's something booth. I can't remember.
But the first computer I had, there was no idea of drawing. That was like this size. It was a Mac with a memory of gigantic 4 megabyte. You know, and so that was just a helping tool for not using the typewriting machine, and which was a nightmare, just to write letters and stuff, but not for drawing or making plans or whatever. That came later.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let me see if we have any Q&A questions. Okay, while we wait, I have a couple more questions. What is a project that you are most proud of?
Probably the craziest one we ever did up to now is this Palace of International Forums in Tashkent in Uzbekistan, in Central Asia, which was the greatest and craziest challenge until today. So that was 6 months of time for 42,000 square meters of space in an incredible luxury, and with all custom-made stuff from crystal. I'm not telling the name of the manufacturer because we are not making PR here, but you know what I mean. And so this is definitely I could say that I'm proud of. I'm a bit carefully with being proud of something, because everybody wants to be proud of something, and the entire social media is just filled up with opinions, or with somebody who's proud of this and proud of that, and I'm a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a good question.
So our last question is: do you have any hobbies outside of work?
I have maybe the hobby that I really like to ride my bike. I have 2 bikes, and in summer I also have an antique scooter, a Vespa.
Oh, I love Vespa.
From '67, which is a stinky Italian scooter, where I'm not lying under and restoring. Also, it's working. It's going. It's good. But a hobby in a typical way, apart from cooking, of course. Well, maybe the cooking is really a hobby. Yeah, I love to cook.
That's really lucky of you. I hate cooking.
I think a man nowadays has to cook.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I can't get into it. It's like the mess that it creates, and then when I start cooking something, I then forget that I'm cooking something, and it's already like burning by the time I remember that I was cooking. It's just not my cup of tea, I feel like. But yeah, that is really cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and answering
Thank
our
you,
questions.
Selin.
This was a pleasure, and getting to know you. You are a very fascinating person, and I
Same
think
to you.
thank you. A lot of
Thank you,
my
Selin.
colleagues would agree. We were actually we were very excited as IALD New York coordinators to be doing this interview with you. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. You take care.
Yeah, you too.
Many thanks, Selin and Gerd, again for the very nice and interesting interview. So please be sure to join us again for the next Designer by Designer interview on the 31st of March, when Gerd will be interviewing Sarah Richter, Associate Member of IALD from the IALD Washington, DC chapter. So registration to join us on Zoom will open soon. And of course, you can always join us on Facebook Live. And we watch any of the Designer by Designer interviews and all of IALD's video content on the IALD YouTube channel. So please make sure to subscribe. And I would like to thank you and wish you a great day.